What up, Dodgers Nation? D-Mac here. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. And we're back with another episode of Designated Twitter, where we dive into all the hottest topics in Dodgerland. What's hot on these Dodger streets? We're going to be talking about it on this episode. On this episode, we're going to ask you guys, who would you rather pick for the next 10 years between Mookie Betts and Mike Trout? Who is the worst free agent signing in Dodgers history? And then finally, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your concern level with Craig Kimbrel? Let us know down below. And for all latest Dodgers news, head over to DodgersNation.com. So the first question we asked you guys over on Twitter today was, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your concern level with Craig Kimbrel? Now, my concern level is the same as the amount of saves he's blown this year, and that is 1. I'm not overly concerned with Kimbrel. If you look at his numbers, it is a little scary. And in the last few games, it has been a wild ride. We've gone from the California Adventure to Mr. Kimbrel's wild ride. It has been cardiac Kimbrel of late. And if you look at his 16 appearances this season, he's given up at least 1 hit in 12 of them. In the other one, he's had a walk. He's only had 3 outings all season in which he's retired the side in order. So not very many clean innings, but last night it was his 3rd appearance in 4 days. So to me, when it comes to Craig Kimbrel, if you look at the fact the Dodgers, they traded him during spring training. You saw how he was used at the beginning of this season. He was going days without getting any appearances, so I think they have to find a better groove for him. But at this point, what I do like is where his velocity is trending. You saw him throwing 93 miles per hour during spring training. Now we're seeing him start to pump it up to 97. You're seeing him strike out multiple batters each and every appearance. So I think for him, it's all about just finding the control of that curveball, and I think he's going to be just fine. But yes, the numbers, they do bore out something to be afraid about. I mean, a 9.95 ERA in his last 7 appearances. He's allowed a run in 5 of his last appearances. But I'm telling you, when it comes to cardiac Kimbrel, to me, yes, he's making our heart race, but he just needs a stint and not a full bypass. Okay, so stick with Craig Kimbrel. But ask the staff here that question, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's their concern level with Craig Kimbrel? And here's what they had to say.
A 5. I mean, I'm not fearing for my life with Craig Kimbrel as the Dodgers closer. It's 1 blown save. It's not the end of the world. He'll figure it out.
Look, if I'm being in the moment, you got to say it's an 8. He's been bad his last couple of weeks. Also, at the same time, he's had 0 consistency this season. Grand scheme of things, I'm low. I'm going to give it high end. I'm going to give it a 4 for right now. But we're used to this as Dodger fans.
So those are just some of their fire takes, and here's some of yours over on Twitter. @BBors tweeted, 3. He's doing what a pitcher should do, striking guys out. The walks aren't too bad. He keeps the ball in the park, and guys aren't hitting the ball hard or in the air off of him. Just got to clean up the command and work with Pryor, plus the analytics people, to get back where he was. And then @ZapB2 tweeted, I would say 10 if I was an overreacting crybaby, but I'm not. I think everyone needs to take a breath and get an effing grip. It was 1 game. Kimbrel is not at his best, but he's still better than most, so a 1, a weak 1. And then Eddie, he tweeted 7. Riding on the wall, get to the playoffs, and he gets lit up. Has control issues, he's erratic. Trinan will be closing. And then @RexDoom, he's already pressed the panic button. He tweeted 15. He's a poop emoji. Bruh. I'd rather use Hudson. But those were your takes over on Twitter. I want your takes down below. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your concern level with Craig Kimbrel? I think he's going to be just fine. Has to find a way to land that breaking ball, land that curveball in the zone, work on some pitch sequencing, but he is missing bats, and he's going to get the job done. And also, you factor in, just look at A.J. Pollock and the year he's having in Chicago. He struggled mightily, so I'm fine with Kimbrel as the Dodgers closer. But moving right along, the next question I asked you guys over on Twitter was about Mookie Betts and Mike Trout. I asked you guys, if you could have one of Mookie Betts or Mike Trout for the next 10 years, who would you pick and why? And if you ask me, yes, Mike Trout is the better player. Yes, Mike Trout, he is the player of this generation. If you look at his numbers, he's finished with an OPS over 1,000 4 times in his career. Mookie Betts, he's done that once. Now, to me, when it comes to who would I rather have for the next 10 years, I'm taking Mookie Betts. Give me Marcus Lynn Betts on the Dodgers. And yes, I will concede that Mike Trout is the better player. If you want to give Mike Trout the Mike Clout, I'm fine with that. But I'm telling you, the biggest fish in LA is Mookie Betts because he's a more marketable player. To me, he plays with that style, with that pizzazz. Also, he's a superior defender. And to me, I just think he's a better fit on the Dodgers. So I go with Mookie Betts over Mike Trout. But ask the staff here that question. If you you could have one of Mookie Betts or Mike Trout for the next 10 years, who would you pick and why? And here's what they had to say.
People are going to hate me for this, but I don't care. I would pick Mike Trout. Betts is the better fielder. Betts is absolutely the better fielder, no question. But what Mike Trout's done, the longevity of his career, what he's done from an awards perspective, all those top 5 MVP finishes, all of those MVP awards, you got to go with Mike Trout. I'm sorry to say.
Mike Trout's going to be the favorite pick. He's never done anything wrong in baseball. He's a golden god of all of the game. But guess what? Marcus Lynn Betts has 2 World Series championships, and you play the game to win, not just pile up personal accolades. I'm sorry, I'm going Mookie Betts. And guess what? We don't got to worry about that. He's going to be a Dodger for life anyway.
So those are some of their takes, but let's dive into some of your takes over on Twitter. Our Vandalay tweeted, Trout. People talk about Trout playing partial seasons. He has one partial year, last year. Mookie played but was hurt, so he wasn't himself either. Trout is bigger, faster, and has more power. Mookie is great, but Trout is the best player of this generation. And then at OTFL 2022 tweeted, Betts, to be honest. He doesn't look like it, but he's younger than Trout by a year, and unlike Mike, he already has the experience of winning titles and all that. 2 titles in 3 years for the guy. He's a proven winner. And then at Dodgers PDX tweeted, I'd pick Mookie. I think Trout is going to continue to play partial seasons due to health issues. It's a tragedy because he's likely the best player in his generation. And then finally, Justin O tweeted out, I love Mookie just as much as the next guy, but you're lying if you don't say Mike Trout. And we ran this poll over on Twitter. If you could have one of Mookie Betts or Mike Trout for the next 10 seasons, who would you pick and why? And right now, 71.7% of you said Mookie Betts, and 28.3% of you said Mike Trout, and that's with 2,216 votes so far. And yes, this is a Dodgers account, so you definitely have to take that into consideration. We also got some nice takes over on YouTube. We ran the same poll over on YouTube, and 74% of you said Mookie Betts, and 26% of you said Mike Trout. I wanted to read this take from Light Grove. He said, that's not even a debate. Career longevity alone, I respect a good Trout here, but Mookie is it. Yeah, I see a lot of you talking about Mike Trout's arm. Mookie definitely has a cannon when you compare it to Trout, but then again, when you see what Mike Trout can do offensively, the power numbers, just he's an outstanding hitter. To me, he's the player of his generation. But for LA, hey, he's a 6-tool player because you have to consider Mookie Betts' marketability. I think it's Mookie Wood here in LA, so give me Mookie Betts on the Dodgers. But our last question today is, who was the worst Dodgers free agent signing in franchise history? And I asked the staff here that question, and here were some of their takes.
I'm going to go deep cut here. I'm going to go with Scott Kazmir, $48 million for 3 years. Dude pitched 1 season, put up a 4.56 ERA. He was god-awful. It was an awful contract. Side note, Brandon McCarthy was also that offseason, who was equally horrendous. But I'm going to go with Scott Kazmir for the worst free agency signing for the Dodgers.
I mean, there are so many ways to go with it, especially over the last 10 years, 15 years. For some reason to me, and it's not a lot of people are going to say much better names, I really think the Andrew Jones move did not work out. That was a terrible signing. Sure, it didn't hurt the team for very, very, very long, but man, was that a tough signing.
So those were their takes, and yeah, those are some terrible signs, but let's get into some of your takes. Blake over on Twitter tweeted, Jason Schmidt, and it isn't even close. He pitched, 6 innings over 3 years for us? Brown gave us high quality over 900-plus innings. Yeah, his contract was overpriced, but he gave us a very solid value, and Schmidt gave us 0 value at all. And this one's our tweet of the week. Derek tweeted, Daryl Strawberry just makes me sad. He was one of my favorite players, and he was coming home to play for the Dodgers, and I thought he would bring what he was when he was with the Mets, and it never happened. The most beautiful swing in baseball, and it just wasn't there. Sad. Yeah, it was a tragedy what happened with Daryl Strawberry and the Dodgers. And then Scott tweeted out, Andrew Jones is part of the list of all-stars we signed past their primes. Luckily, we don't do that anymore. Daryl Strawberry, Eric Davis, and Ricky Henderson. You throw my man Ricky Henderson in there? Man. And then T. Burns 826 over on YouTube said, Andrew Jones is the easy choice. However, if he wasn't so bad, LA doesn't trade for Manny. Strawberry at least was good for one season. I go with Jason Schmidt. That was just an absolute waste of money. What made it worse is that he was a great pitcher for the Giants and then had no arm left by the time he came to LA. So you make a couple really great points there. One, Darryl Strawberry in his 1 year for the Dodgers, 28 home runs, a 140 OPS plus, made the All-Star team, and then fortunately got into some trouble after that. And then you also make up a great point that they release Andrew Jones, they open up that roster spot, and then later that year we all experienced Manny Wood. But for me, if you're asking me, my take on this is I'm going with Jason Schmidt. You know, I don't encourage the signing of former Giants, and he was a giant disaster with the Dodgers. If you look at his numbers, in 10 games he posted a 6.02 ERA. He pitched in just 10 games in 3 years with LA, signed that 3-year $47 million contract. That's more than $1 million per inning with LA. So to me, he was an absolute bust. Look, that guy looks like Charlie Brown, and I think Lucy would tell him that he's hopeless. And I know that he was injured, but the Dodgers knew at the time that he was injured, and they signed him anyway. They bought a car that had the check engine light on and said, hey, we'll give you 3 years, $47 million, and it was a bust. And I know that Schmidt happens, but I'm telling you, it was an absolute disaster, and that's my pick, Jason Schmidt. But let me know down below in the comment section, who do you think is the worst free agent signing in Dodgers history? Let me know down below. And also, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your concern level for Craig Kimbrel right now? And then finally, who would you pick between Mookie Betts and Mike Trout if you could have them for the next 10 years? Let us know down below. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. For our latest Dodgers news, rumors, hype videos, breakdowns, interviews, and more all season long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and if you want to see us post even more Dodgers content, smash that like button. Really helps out the channel. And as always, think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.